Hey there, it's Dr. Driver. Time for another moving forward look at the lectionary readings. This week we're looking at the latter part of Acts 2 and the latter part of John 20. So starting with Acts, Peter is going to preach a big old sermon on the day of Pentecost, and part of it is quoting a psalm of David saying that God will not abandon the person to the realm of the dead and will not allow the Holy One to experience decay. Peter says to those assembled for the holy day, David's dead. We know where his tomb is. This has to be about somebody else. And in fact, I think I know who it is. It's Jesus, because he came back to life. He was resurrected, not merely resuscitated, but he will not die again. And we witnessed him. We saw him. We have seen his resurrected body. And by that, Peter is referring back to those stories of the risen Jesus appearing. So looking at John 20, the setup really gets me. The disciples were hiding out in some sort of building with locked doors, and they were feeling quite a bit of fear. And if that doesn't hit you, boy, it's hitting me. I am experiencing a lot of fear and anxiety about sickness, about economic situations, about political turmoil. There's some crazy news about, and it is an anxious time. But Jesus doesn't let walls and separation and isolation slow him down a bit. He just appears through a locked door, through walls, and shows up among the disciples. And what does he say first? He says, "Peace be with you." And I could see the disciples not being very peaceful, seeing their recently murdered Messiah appearing. And so Jesus shows them his hands, shows them his side to convince them that it really was him. This is not a ghost. This is a physically resurrected Jesus, bodily present among them. And to make sure they get the point, Jesus says again, "Peace be with you." There's something about Jesus showing up in a confusing, disorienting way, to be sure, but showing up that Jesus really wants to bring us peace. Now, what about Thomas? Thomas, I argue, gets a horrible rap. He was bravely out amongst the people. He was the one sent to do the Costco run for groceries while everybody else hunkered down. And he comes back, and all the rest of the disciples have said, "We have seen the Lord." And Thomas says, okay. He doesn't try to dissuade them. He says, look, you saw his hands, you saw his side, he showed them to you. Jesus does that of his own initiative. I'll believe if I can see the exact same sign. And so what does Jesus do? He shows up again. Jesus wants to be present. And he says, look, Thomas, see my hands. Put your hand in my side. It's kind of gross. But put your hand in my side so you can believe. And then, what else does he say? He says, "Peace be with you." There's something about Jesus that he wants to show up. And he doesn't care if the doors are locked. If we're isolated in our various homes, he wants to be present. And more than that, he wants to offer his peace. So the takeaways for me this week are a bodily present Jesus who will pass through any barrier, whether it's death, whether it's sin, or whether it's social isolation, social distancing, and locked doors. And he will show up and he will be present. And in the midst of an anxious time, he will give peace. That's some good news. Take care, y'all.